Today on episode 175 of the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, I go solo again on my monthly edition, and today I'm going to be telling you how challenging yourself is going to increase your leadership abilities. That's right, folks. It's all about upping your game today. Are you ready for this? All right, let's do it. Yes, it's so great to have you here again this week. And it's, great to be solo again this month. I think I'm starting to really enjoy these monthly solo sessions. Just me, just you, and of course my microphone and our thoughts. Sometimes they're from me, sometimes they're from you guys, the listeners, based off of your requests. But today is something that I came up with that I wanted to talk about myself. And that is leadership lessons from 75 Hard. So from 1st of February 2021, this year, for 75 days straight, I went and took on this challenge with a group of men. A group of 15 of us took this on head first. And I wanted to talk about my experiences from a leadership standpoint about this challenge that most people look at it as an individualistic challenge, a personal growth type challenge. And I guess that's pretty much the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to my lessons from this is, I'm going to talk to you about what it is first. So 75 Hard is a mental toughness challenge developed by Andy Frisella. Andy Frisella is an entrepreneur out of the States, super successful man. If you don't know who he is, feel free to check his stuff out. And I do have a link to his podcast episode where he talks about 75 Hard, where it comes from, the rules, and his ideology around it all in the show notes. And you can check those out at movingforwardleadership.com/175. Anyway, so let's just quickly go over the rules so you have an idea of what I went through for 75 days. So the first off is no alcohol. None zilch, not a lick, nothing, right? And the rules are done in such a way there is no flexibility. You follow these 6 basic rules for the 75 days. You waver on them, you fail. And according to Andy, you're supposed to restart over the 75-day challenge. So, rule number 1, no alcohol. Rule number 2, complete 2 45-minute workouts per day. And you're probably going like, holy crap, Scott, I have a hard enough time getting one 45-minute workout in. How the heck do you plan on doing 2? And that is, it goes down to 1, prioritization, but 2, also having an understanding of what a workout really is in this program. And ultimately what it boils down to is you doing some form of exercise. And during the 75 days, I took on things that I normally don't do that aren't like, grinding them out workouts, but rather recovery type activities such as walking more, right? But I would throw on a weighted vest when I did so. Lots of yoga, which really I could see the benefits of it right away and getting more flexibility. And reality is it's been a while now. It's been a few months since I finished the 75 Hard program. I'm realizing that I need more yoga back in my life. So that's gonna be a goal of mine coming forth, to get more yoga going in my life. But anyway, back to the rules. Complete 2 45-minute workouts. Next rule, follow meal plan without cheating. No cheating. And for me, I followed a macro diet, right? And with that, I used Avatar Nutrition app. So again, that's going to be in the show notes for you as well. But that is a great app which allows you to track the micro or macronutrients that you eat, i.e. protein, fats, and carbs. And it's a fantastic app, very similar to MyFitnessPal, if you know about MyFitnessPal, but I actually would recommend this one more because it is completely geared towards macronutrients and tracking those vice calories, which now studies, from what I read, are it's more important the macros vice the calories, but however, they do go hand in hand. So feel free to check that out. Again, that's in the show notes. So meal plan, no cheating. I followed macro diet plan through Avatar Nutrition. Next one, yeah, really the toughest one of all for me. Drink a gallon of water per day. A U.S. gallon of water per day, which is like almost 4 liters for us in the metric world. It was a lot of water, and it really was my hardest thing to do every single day. There would be days where I was finishing my water up late at night. So, all right, moving on to the 5th rule, which was the easiest one for me. Read 10 pages of self-improvement book. Obviously, for this podcast, with all the guests that I get on the show, I get a lot of books sent to me for review. I get a lot of books sent to me as part of pitches and stuff like this. So I'm constantly reading self-improvement books from a leadership standpoint. So 10 pages per day was nothing. There were days when I would do 10 times that. I would sit there, especially on weekends, I'd do a lot of reading. And I could easily knock out 100 pages plus in a day of a couple hours sitting there with coffee in the morning as my kids played. And then the final rule, take a progress pic. That is just take a picture of yourself, no shirt. For the ladies, would be in your sports bra or whatever. Take a progress pic of yourself. You didn't have to share it. However, we did share it. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on the setup that I was involved in. So those were the 6 rules. Again, I'll quickly go over them for you. 75 days straight, no alcohol, 2 45-minute workouts per day, follow a meal plan without cheating, gallon of water, 10 pages of a self-improvement book, and then finally take a progress picture. So set the scene for you. I had a group of 15 of us total, and I was leading this thing. So the way we set it up is that we had our own little separate group area online that we would be able to post to. We had a picture app that we used to share photos. And then, as well, we assigned everyone accountability partners. So someone that you can lean in on for those tough days. Someone you can lean in on to make sure that you weren't wavering from the plan, that what you did for workouts were really good enough. Someone that you can bounce ideas off when you were having trouble trying to figure out what to do. Just someone to talk to that you knew was going through the exact same thing as you. And on top of that, we had bi-weekly calls where we all jumped on Zoom and we talked about the struggles we were having, the wins we were having, passing ideas around about meal plans and workouts and how to change things up and keep it spicy, because you really could get into this rut of doing a mundane routine day in, day out. But at the same time, we had support for each other to help each other get through these hurdles. So that is basically the setup that we had. And then we kicked off on the 1st of February going into it. And I'll tell you, and this is the first real point of leadership lessons and 75 Hard, was that you need to have a plan when you're going after something like this. You can't just wing it. And that's like in leadership. So when it comes to 75 Hard, I did have a plan. I actually went and started trialing the different challenges throughout the month of January for a few days here and there. So I went a few days and figured out, okay, when am I going to do my 2 45-minute workouts? One was fine. One was easy. Day in, day out. I work out almost every single day, if not every single day. Weekdays, I'm up at 5 a.m. Weekends, I will generally tick something off during the day, midday. But the second one was becoming the challenge. Now, I figured out, okay, during my workday, I am very flexible. Lunch times, I can pretty much easily get a workout in. So I was planning on that, getting a workout in during my lunch. But then it was the weekends that I needed to figure out, okay, when am I going to do my second workout? When am I going to do my first one? And getting a plan there. So that was my first goal. The second goal was actually trying to figure out how and when I was going to drink a gallon of water, believe it or not. Because I don't drink probably not enough. Some people would argue, but I don't drink a ton of water throughout my day. So I needed to figure that out. I needed benchmark points throughout the day of where I needed to be with my water consumption. So I had to trial that for about a week before we kicked off. And the point was for me to have understanding, because a lot of people out there bought those. You can get them 1 gallon water jugs on Amazon. Feel free to grab one if you want to. That tell you, throughout the day how far you should be in your day. Now, I didn't get one of those because I just didn't want to be that guy walking around with this ginormous gallon of water at work, or trying to bring it with me if I was going somewhere for the day. But what I needed to know was, with my water bottles, how far do I need to be throughout the day to stay on point? And the reality was, I wanted to be finished my water consumption by 6 p.m. I did not want to have to be at 9 p.m. worrying about downing another liter of water or so, because, well, you can probably figure out once you start going to bed at like 10 o'clock at night and you're downing a liter of water at 9, you know what's going to happen, right? So that is why having a plan is crucial. And that's true in leadership, right? We can't just go and wing it all the time. We have to have an idea of where we're going. We have to have an idea of how we're going to get there. And that we need to have a plan about it and think this through, so that we're just not, a rudderless ship going around and just not really knowing where we're going to go, and in reality, not knowing how we're going to get there. So having a plan is absolutely crucial. We need to take time, figure things out, trial them, and then, most importantly, figure out the pain points, figure out where we're going to get hicked up, and figure out how to get around it. So that's point number 1. And you know what? Sometimes those plans don't come through. And that's going to go into my second point of impacts of decisions and actions. So some days were tougher than others, obviously. And I was just talking about the water consumption. And by the way, side note is, this is the one task most people had the most difficulty with, believe it or not, for the 75 days. So anyway, to go back to my point, was the impacts of decisions and actions. So sometimes I just didn't get my water consumption done at 6 p.m. I was until 9 p.m. going and still drinking my water and downing that liter of water. So our decisions and our actions have consequences and have impacts, and then those have impacts. So let's go through this. The impacts upon the impacts upon the impacts of our decision. So we'll say me not drinking my gallon of water until late at night was a decision. It was. I decided not to, regardless. If I was actively deciding that, i.e. saying, nope, I'm not going to drink this now, I'm going to drink coffee instead, or other things instead, because it doesn't matter what you had to drink. Unless it was actual water, you didn't count. It didn't count. towards your goal for that day. It had to be just straight water. So let's go back. So I would push off water consumption throughout the day until there I was at 9 p.m. downing that last liter. So the impact of that decision was what? Well, you can probably guess it. If I'm going to bed at 10 p.m. and I'm downing water like crazy until 9:30 some nights, I'm getting up to use the washroom throughout the night. So the impact of my decision was I'd have to get up and use the washroom throughout the night. Not a big deal, you think. But what's the impact of that impact? The impact of that impact was that I would be tired when my alarm would go off at 5 a.m. And I would have to try to drag myself out of bed. And the days that I could drag myself out of bed at 5 a.m., my workout was not nearly as effective as what it normally would have been if I had a good night's rest. So, decision was not to drink my water when I should have. Impact, had to drink my water late at night. Impact, having to get up at night. Impact, poor night's sleep. Impact, poor workout the next morning. But let's carry on, shall we? Because it keeps going, right? Then I get down on myself. Or if I decide not to work out at 5 a.m. and sleep in, then guess what? I had to make up that workout throughout the day somehow. So again, you can see how these impacts compound on each other. It just keeps going and going and going. And that's true in leadership, right? That is true when us as leaders make decisions. Sometimes we make a decision and just look at it at the superficial level. Just the impacts that that decision has on that immediate situation without thinking it through deeper, without discussing it with others to be able to look at the impacts of the impacts of the impacts and keep going and looking at it to have a holistic viewpoint of our decision that we need to make. So my point to you is that we need to look at things more in depthly and have an understanding of what it is you're actually deciding here. Not just a superficial decision, but rather deep level things. And this is where having a team and calling on your team comes in, because they're the ones that's going to help you get through this. All right, so that is leadership lesson number 2. Let's move on. Leadership lesson number 3 from the 75 Hard Challenge. And that is support of a team is crucial. We all know we don't make it alone. Lone wolves generally don't get far. The pack is what gets us through things. And the pack for me for the 75 Hard was not only that group of 15 men, but rather my friends who were aware that I was doing it. Of course, my wife, my family, supporting me, my oldest. Of course, my youngest is a bit too young to have an understanding of what I was doing. My oldest had a rough idea of what I was going through, being 5 years old. But the support of the team is crucial. Like I talked about, we had accountability partners. We had bi-weekly check-in calls. We had a separate forum for us to discuss things on. We had the pictures where we were sharing pictures and all this other stuff. Support of the team is crucial to help us get through it. When you go into a program like this, where you're being challenged every single day, you cannot falter, you cannot waver from it, you generally will get run down about midway, right? You start feeling the effects of it and the impacts that it's having. You start getting annoyed that, I just want a glass of wine with dinner, or I want to have a cheap meal. I want to not have to worry about this water, or I don't feel like reading today, etc., etc. My body is tired. You get the point, right? So the support of a team is crucial, because they're the ones that are going to be able to push you through. When your motivation is low, they're the ones that are going to push you through. And if you've been listening to the show at any time, you know that I am not a fan of motivation, but rather I believe in self-discipline. And the self-discipline here is getting up and get going. And when the times when your motivation, so motivation in my viewpoint is something that is short-term, it's basically immediate, that will push you at that point in time, but self-discipline is the reason why you get motivation in the first place. Self-discipline is going to be the one that gets you up and going. Motivation is just going to make you go a little bit harder. Anyway, having a team behind you will help you because you'll have that self-discipline to check in with them when times are tough, when you don't have that motivation, when you don't have the drive, the willpower, etc., to go after it. The team is your self-discipline kicking in. They're the ones that are going to be like, heck no, you got this. You just need to do this, change that, and the other thing. They'll get to you to the end goal. And sometimes sealing their success will help you. So think about that when it comes to your leadership. We all know as leaders, without our teams, we're nothing. We're nobodies. We're not leaders. Without our teams, we are simply just another cog in the machine. Our teams are the ones that achieve it all for us. And sometimes we as leaders, we need their support. We need to lean on them. We need to pick their brains. We need them to even pick us up when times are rough because being a leader is tough, right? So think of that. Support of the team is crucial. Don't go in alone. And if you feel uncomfortable with getting the support of your team that you lead, then look for a team of leaders to lean in on. Peers, coworkers, maybe people from outside your organization. Come join our Facebook group, right? That's what we're here for. It's the support of the team. All right, let's move along. 2 more to go. Next one. Sometimes as leaders, we need to manage our own expectations. And this was true with 75 Hard. I thought I was going to go hard. I was going to go fast for 75 days. I was going to crush 2 workouts a day. But I got a quick slap in the face, right? I needed to manage my own expectations. And I needed to manage my own expectations for my progress that I was doing. The weight I was losing, the definition I was gaining. Sometimes I felt like it wasn't moving at all, and then all suddenly, boom, there it was in front of me. And sometimes as leaders, we need to do the same thing. We expect our people to be able to move so fast at record speeds. We expect us to motivate and inspire our people to be the greatest things ever. But you know what? Sometimes things just take time. We're in it for the long haul. And that's the same thing as 75 Hard. It's 75 days. It's 2.5 months. It's not a short period of time. It's almost a third almost a quarter of the year at 2.5 months. So it is the long haul, and we need to manage our own expectations on how fast things are going to progress and what really is the outcome we're actually going to achieve within those 75 days. So as a leader, we need to take that lesson and bring it to our daily interactions with our people, our work, our outcomes. We need to manage our own expectations to make sure that what we're asking is truly achievable. What we expect is truly achievable from our teams, our organizations. Because guess what? Sometimes you just don't have control over all the factors out there. And you can't decide everything. So you need to manage those expectations. All right. And then the final topic for this talk in this podcast episode, learning to fail gracefully. Now, for 75 days straight, I was supposed to complete those 6 tasks. And I'll tell you, I failed. I failed 5 times, I believe it was. Yes, 5 times. I failed 3 times in taking my progress picture. I failed once with a meal plan. I actually didn't cheat. You'll probably laugh at this, but rather I just overate on clean protein outside of my macros. So the app that I was using allows goal targets for you to hit for your consumption of proteins, fats, and carbs. And one day I overate on my protein because I forgot to log something. And at supper time, I had a little bit extra chicken when I couldn't afford to have it. So there was that. And then one day, believe it or not, I actually forgot to read, of all things. So I failed those 5 days. Now, the first time I failed, I could have done, I could have done what's expected, according to the challenge, i.e., go back and start all over again. But I was far into it. I mean, this was around day 40 something probably when that happened. And again, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, getting in that mundane routine, right? And that's where things slipped up. So I realized I had forgotten to read one day, and I had failed the challenge. I had failed the 75 hard challenge. And I had basically three choices in front of me. One, go back to day one, start over. Two, just quit. Just completely quit and not do anything. Or three, carry on knowing I had failed. Carry on going after those 6 tasks knowing I had failed. And that's what I decided to do. Why? Because if I had quit completely, I would have done everything for nothing up until that point, right? What example would I have been setting? What example would I have been showing to my children, my friends, my kids, my friends who were doing it with me, etc.? I wouldn't have been setting a great example either. I could have gone back to day one. However, I fear my wife would probably have left me because she was feeling the effects and the pressure that I was having on myself to get this done and not really enjoying it. But I say that in jest. She probably wouldn't have left me. But the reality is that it does have an impact on your family when you're married with children like I am, and puts a little bit extra pressure on your spouse, although I did the best I could to mitigate it, to take it away from her. So I could have went back to day one, but I decided to carry on because we don't get do-overs in life. We don't get do-overs when we make decisions. We don't get do-overs at all, right? Second chances are really just another time to make a different decision. So that's what I decided to do. I went after the program knowing I had failed according to Andy's rules, knowing that I didn't complete all 6 tasks every single day, but I still went after it with the tenacity of completing it like nothing had changed. To show that, you know what? Sometimes we fail by other people's rules, but you know what? Sometimes we succeed to ours and our expectations and our standards. And to me, that was more important. As leaders, that's what we need to do, right? We need to learn how to fail gracefully, take those lessons learned, implement them, and make sure that we don't do the same mistakes again. Now, unfortunately, for 4 more times, I did fail. But it was okay because I learned something each time I failed. Learned a little bit more about me and a little bit more about what I needed to change to get through it. And day 75, I was still just as proud of myself as I would have been if I had gone through it 75 days without failing. And I think the biggest thing for me was I didn't actively fail, i.e., go and decide shag this and grab the order McDonald's, or shag this and cracked open a beer throughout. No, I kept to it. It wasn't because I had actively done something against the rules, but rather made a hiccup, forgot. I got out of my routine for progress pictures. Forgot to read for whatever reason. Accidentally, made that mistake of not logging all my food on that one time where I overate on protein. So it wasn't like I was actively trying to fail or actively decided to fail, but rather had a slip up in making sure I had checked off all those tasks. And that happens. Welcome to life. Welcome to life as a leader. Welcome to life as a parent. Welcome to life as a human being. How do we change things? How do we do better for the next time? That is what really matters. And that what means to fail gracefully. Not beat myself up over it, but rather learn from it and move on. And those, ladies and gentlemen, my basically leadership lessons learned from completing 75 hard. So again, just quickly, having a plan is crucial. Understanding the impacts of decisions and actions that you take, making sure you have the support of a team, managing your expectations, and finally, learning to fail gracefully. That is it. Thank you for listening as always. I don't know if you're following me on social media, but if you're not, be sure to, because with your support, we've hit the top 50 in podcast management podcasts in Canada, the top 10 in Papua New Guinea. Thank you all. We're ranking in the US and other countries around the world. This show would not have all that without you. And I thank you for it from the bottom of my heart. And that is all I got for today, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, as always, lead and don't boss. Take care now.